Dog's deed is done.
What can I say? They were the best. They really stood out. They put it all together when it counts, and that's what this sport's all about.
What a routine.
And that just may do it for Georgia here tonight.
Wow.
The GymDog Show is brought to you by Melwood Springs. Melwood Springs from the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Georgia.
Hello and welcome to the Georgia GymDog Show. I'm Kevin Kopp, joined as always by head coach Jay Clark. Coach, I'm sure nice to get a week of rest this week at the end of the regular season, getting a 2-week layoff more or less, heading into the SEC Championship after 3 meets in 8 days. We will, of course, preview the 2010 SEC Championship. Also on this show, we get to take a tour of the East Campus Village with some of Georgia's freshmen, get to see where they stay during their school year here, and then we'll also get an up-close and personal look at assistant coach Doug McCavin. So looking forward to that. But, of course, the big story, what's sitting right behind us here, this trophy that's been on this table for the last couple of weeks. You only get 2 weeks during a season where you have a chance to win a trophy. Of course, the NCAA championship, but also the championship of your conference, coach. And just to start, looking at this conference top to bottom, every team, 1 through 7, being in the top 20 is part of what makes the SEC so special. What does that do in a championship environment like this? I mean, you look at the lowest ranked team in the conference is Auburn, and they beat Georgia. There's been upsets all year in the regular season. How exciting is that to head into Jacksonville and have this settled on one day?
It's, you know, Kevin, the SEC Championship is a tremendous environment every year, and it's a meet that prepares the Southeastern Conference teams in such a unique way for what is down the road should they qualify to the national championships, and it's an advantage for our conference to have such a huge marquee event that in many ways is a better event than even sometimes the national championship is. And it really sharpens every one of our teams. It's a long meet. There's 7 teams in it. You really test yourself in terms of your competitive fortitude because there's a bye rotation between 3 of the 4 events, and it's a grueling, kind of grinding kind of meet, but what an exciting environment it is at the same time because typically we have great crowds there. It's on a neutral site. You don't get the sense that you're in someone's gym or that anyone has a particular advantage one way or the other, and it just makes for great drama in our sport, and I think it's probably in a lot of ways the highlight of the year for many of our fans and our followers because winning the SEC to so many people in the South is a big deal.
Well, you do have the benefit of 2 weeks, more or less, in between the final meet of the regular season against NC State, 13-day layoff until the SEC Championships in Jacksonville, Florida. How does your approach change or what you try to do in practice, given that you have 2 weeks? You're not trying to gear up like last week on 5 days rest for 2 meets in 2 different states. Do you take things a little bit easier, or what are the adjustments that you make as a coach in practice?
Well, immediately following the last meet, we took a couple of days off, give them some rest, let the legs rest, let their minds rest a little bit too. You know, we had 3 meets in 8 days, and that's a tough mental grind at the end of a season that's already tough mentally, and so to give them a couple of days off, get a little bit of rest physically and mentally was very important. And then we kind of ramp it up for the first 2 days of that training. We really have 4 full days of training between the last meet and the SEC Championships if we really look at it. And there's some lighter workouts and some conditioning that goes on in there. But in terms of gymnastics training, we got 4 full days. And so what we try to do is we'll start a little bit heavier and then taper that down on the back side of those 4 and try to mix up the events that we start on and try to throw them some different circumstances that could indeed happen once you go to a championship, because as you know, it's a draw and we don't know what event we're going to start on. So sometimes we start as a group on various events that we have not had experience starting on this year. And during the regular season, during the dual meet season, we start on vault or bars every week, and so we have taken some time to practice starting on balance beam or starting on floor because those are places that we have not had a whole lot of familiarity with.
Well, Coach, you mentioned part of the unpredictability of the SEC Championship is that you can start anywhere in terms of the 4 rotations, and we've seen some lineup juggling with Georgia up to the final week of the regular season and due to management of injuries and some other situations that have cropped up during the regular season. So when you look at preparing this team, for the postseason run. Kind of take us through the plan for Georgia in those 4 rotations, knowing that it could be beam, it could be floor that this team starts out on.
Well, you point out that we've had, throughout the year, we've moved our lineup around quite a bit. And the important thing to note in this meet is that the best lineup that we have available is the one that's going to be in there. And I don't know that that's been the case all that often as we would like it to be this year. We've had to rest people. We've had problems in warm-ups that we've had to adjust to. I don't think that's going to be an issue at this point. Marcia will be in on vault, which she has been in probably half of the time, and that's a glaring spot when she's not in there because it's a potential 9-9 for you. We should have Grace on all 3 events, as we have for a good portion of the last part of the season here. We should have Gina going on everything. We don't believe we're going to have Shayla at this point doing anything, but the best lineup that we have that's available will be out there. And I think it's important to note that, particularly on floor, one of the events that really gave us so much trouble early in the season, and one of the reasons that we are counting probably the lowest score of anyone in the top 10 with our RQS formula, we're still counting a 195 when nobody else is having to, is because of what happened to us early on floor. Floor has come light years from where it was early in the season, from a place where we were 22nd in the nation, and we've come flying all the way back up to around 6th in the country right now as we speak today. So we feel like that weakness that was there earlier is no longer there, and that the only reason that we really are not ranked any higher than we are is because we're still having to count some of those mistakes that happened very early in the season. So we're very pleased with the progress that this lineup has made, and I think what you're going to see on balance is probably a really solid team on every event. I don't know if we'll win every event, but I think that when you add up 4 scores, I think that Georgia, our team, is as balanced as any team in the country, and I think across the board it's going to be tough to beat us, in terms of the total score on any given night if we put together 24 routines.
Well, and you mentioned that floor rotation for Georgia capping off the regular season with a bit of an exclamation point, going 49-5-5 on floor to finish up at Stegman Coliseum against NC State. Hopefully a springboard into the SEC Championship, again being held in Jacksonville on Saturday, March 27th. We'll take a break on the Georgia GymDog Show. When we come back, we'll take a tour of the freshman dorm and also get to know assistant coach Doug McAvin.
The Georgia GymDog Show is brought to you by Melwood Springs. Melwood Springs from the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Georgia. The 10-0 Booster Club. The 10-0 Booster Club, the official booster club of the Georgia Gymnastics team. Athens Orthopedic Clinic. Athens Orthopedic Clinic, serving Georgia athletes for over 40 years. And by Alpha Factor. Alpha Factor, the official gymnastics apparel worn by the Gym Dogs.